The wind howled through the desolate Arizona canyon, carrying the faint echo of hoofbeats and the distant cry of a coyote, as if the land itself sensed the storm of trouble brewing. John Marwood, a widower still raw from the loss of his wife 2 years prior, sat alone in his creaking rocking chair, staring at the flickering flames in the fireplace of his modest ranch house. His hands, calloused from years of toil, clutched a faded photograph of his late wife, Emily, her smile a ghost that haunted his every day. At 42, John felt like a man twice his age, his heart heavy with grief, his nights sleepless with the silence of an empty home. But that night, the silence shattered when a frantic knock rattled his door, and he opened it to find a pregnant Navajo woman, drenched in sweat and rain, cradling a trembling 5-year-old girl in her arms, her dark eyes wide with terror as she whispered, "Please, sir, they're coming for us." John's instincts, dulled by solitude, surged to life. The woman, who introduced herself as Naya, and her daughter, little Kina, looked like they'd been running for days, clothes torn, faces smudged with dirt, and a desperation in Naya's gaze that struck a chord deep in John's chest. She explained in broken, breathless sentences that she was fleeing a band of outlaws, ruthless men who'd already taken her husband's life in a botched robbery on Navajo land. They wanted her now, believing she'd witnessed too much, knew too much about their dealings in stolen cattle and smuggled goods. John, a man who'd built his life on hard work and quiet honor, didn't hesitate. "You're safe here," he said, ushering them inside, locking the door against the night. He gave them dry clothes, old shirts of Emily's for Naya, a blanket for Kina, and a warm meal of stew from the pot he'd barely touched himself. As Kina's tiny hands gripped the spoon, her big eyes watching him warily, John felt a flicker of purpose, a warmth he hadn't known since Emily's passing. The first challenge came swiftly. Naya, 7 months pregnant, was exhausted and frail, her body trembling from the strain of flight and the weight of her unborn child. John, no stranger to loss, saw the fear in her eyes, not just for the outlaws, but for the life growing inside her. He dug through his late wife's things, finding a small stash of herbal remedies Emily had once used, and brewed a tea to ease Naya's shaking. Kina, clinging to her mother's side, barely spoke, her silence a shield against a world that had already shown her too much cruelty. John knelt to her level, offering a carved wooden horse he'd made years ago for a child he and Emily never had. "This fella's brave," he told her softly. "He'll keep you safe." Kina's tiny fingers closed around it, and a ghost of a smile broke through, the first crack in her armor. But as John watched them settle by the fire, doubt gnawed at him. Could he, a broken man, protect this fragile family from dangers he didn't fully understand? Days turned to weeks, and the ranch became a fragile sanctuary. Naya shared stories of her people, the dying, teaching John and Kina's simple Navajo words as they worked side by side, her mending clothes, him tending the livestock. A bond grew, tentative but real, as John found himself laughing again, Kina's giggles over a clumsy calf a balm to his wounded soul. Naya's strength, despite her exhaustion, stirred admiration in him. She spoke of her late husband, Sila, with love and grief that mirrored John's own, forging a quiet understanding between them. But the shadow of the outlaws loomed. One night, as John repaired a fence under the starlit sky, he spotted dust on the horizon. Riders, 5 of them, moving fast. His heart pounded as he raced back, waking Naya and Kina, ushering them to the root cellar beneath the barn. "Stay quiet," he whispered, handing Naya his old pistol, his hands shaking not from fear of the men, but from the thought of failing these 2 souls who'd come to mean so much. Of the outlaws arrived, their leader a grizzled man named Rafe, his face scarred and his voice a snarl. "We know you got the squaw, widower," he spat, his men fanning out, rifles glinting in the moonlight. John stood his ground on the porch, shotgun in hand, his voice steady despite the storm in his chest. "Ain't no one here but me. Move on." Rafe laughed, cold and cruel, and a shot rang out, splintering the doorframe. The challenge was clear, they'd burn the place down if he didn't give Naya up. John's mind raced, grief had hollowed him, but Naya and Kina had filled that void with something worth fighting for. He fired a warning shot, scattering the men to cover, buying time. In the cellar, Naya clutched Kina, whispering prayers in Navajo, her hands steady on the pistol despite her fear. John held them off through the night, a tense standoff, until a neighbor, alerted by the gunfire, wrote for the sheriff. Dawn broke, and the sheriff's posse arrived, driving the outlaws into a chaotic retreat. Rafe, cornered, lunged at John with a knife, but Naya, emerging from the cellar, fired a single shot grazing his shoulder, enough to send him fleeing with his men, later caught and jailed. The ranch stood battered but whole, and John, Naya, and Kina collapsed together, breathless, alive. Weeks later, Naya gave birth to a healthy boy, Sela, named for his father, with John at her side, cutting the cord, tears in his eyes as Kina clapped with joy. The challenge of trust lingered. Naya feared staying too long, bringing more danger, but John knelt before her one evening, voice thick with emotion. "This ain't just my home anymore. It's ours. You and the kids, you've given me a reason to live again." Months passed, and the ranch thrived, a blend of John's grit and Naya's wisdom. Kina now called him Uncle John, her laughter a constant song. The outlaws were gone, locked away, but the deeper victory was in their healing. John, once a struggling widower, found family in Naya's courage and Kina's trust, while Naya, hunted and broken, found safety and a partner in spirit. As the sun set one evening, John carved a new wooden horse for baby Sela, Naya weaving a blanket beside him, Kina chattering about the stars. The message was clear, a beacon for anyone watching. In the face of loss and fear, hope blooms when you open your heart to others, building a family not of blood, but of unshakable love and resilience. And so, in that quiet Arizona canyon, they forged a life, proof that even the most broken souls can mend, together.